Now, there's no doubt that tents are one of my favorite aspects of backpacking and camping. I love the way that geometry comes together to create a design of a tent that is just fun to use in the backcountry, but is also storm-worthy, performs well in the elements and the rain and snow and wind, and creates that opportunity to be protected. This is the TFS Enran 2. Or the Free Spirits is what TFS stands for. And this style of tent here is a tunnel style tent because you've got this center arc pole that creates that structure for the center of the tent and then trekking poles at the ends. So it's kind of like an elongated design, and then it has that hoop for you to create this space inside. Now, I've used other tunnel style shelters in the past. I've used the Tarp Tent Moment and had a decent experience with that, but it felt pretty claustrophobic, as well as the Hilleberg Inn on One. Both of those are one-person tents. This is a two-person tent, but there are aspects to this that make this tunnel style tent much more enjoyable to sleep in and spend your time in than those other two tents that I've used in the past. So first I want to talk about TFS as a company, because you may not be familiar with TFS. They are out of China, and what's cool about them is they are designing and creating everything in-house. This is not a white label company. This is not a brand that is taking previous designs and then just slapping their logo onto it. The owner of TFS, Wang Jigang, is an awesome person. I had a chance to sit down and do a podcast with him and learn about the brand and everything. I've got that link down in the description because it's a cool conversation. I just appreciate a brand that is stepping out of the bounds a little bit and trying new things and just trying to bring some other types of innovation to tent design, which is really cool. And as a brand, they also design and produce everything in-house. So they're not outsourcing to other factories. They have full control over the quality control and the production process, which I think is really neat and adds to the value of this product. What you have here is a two-person size tent. This is a double wall shelter. Now, because this tent is double walled, you have two different inner options that you can choose from, as well as several different outer fly options. The inner options, you have this mesh, full mesh inner, or you can get a solid inner as well. I'm gonna show you the solid inner here in a minute because something has been added to the floor since I got this particular inner tent that adds some additional space to the vestibule if you are using this as a one-person tent. Dimension-wise, what this tent is 94 inches of length to the inside of the tent. That is a huge amount of space, and it makes it so that with the design of the tent, you don't have the walls coming in down really steeply to the sleeping bags and your face at the head end and feet end if you do have two people in here. Now, you can get two 25-inch wide pads in here because it is 51 inches of width, and then you are just over 3 feet of height in your peak height here. And for a solo person sitting right in the center of the tent, I have plenty of space to move around. I'll take my hat off and then it's a little bit easier to see. But right at the very center, the peak of the tent, I think for a lower profile tent that is designed to handle stronger winds, heavier winds, and rain, with the design of it being that tunnel style, having that peak height and not feeling like I'm in a coffin makes for this to be a much more enjoyable space to be in. And the time that I have slept in this so far, it's great. And there is so much space in here for one person. It's almost too big for one person, but it's a nice area to spend your time in. Now, I feel like anytime a company can maximize the ventilation opportunity on a tent, you've got a huge win. So here at the end of the tent, on both sides, you have this zipper that you're able to open up these flaps, and you've got toggles for you to roll back and just open this up on those really nice nights where you want to get that breeze as much as possible coming through the tent. There's a little loop right here, and you also have some clips or buckles down here at the bottom so that when it gets super windy and everything, man, this is covered in sand. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second when I talk about the various fabric options. But here I can roll these back, and I can do this from inside of the tent as well. I showed you that a little bit here, but now I've got all of this open space, and with these zippers on the inner, I'm able to reach through the tent, roll these back or close them up and not have to get out of the tent. I think that is so slick and so nice to be able to do all of that. And you've also got this panel of solid fabric here that's going to help aid with the amount of dust and dirt that's blowing in if you do have these open but the doors are closed. So really cool, nice design. And because the inner is completely removable, I have the option of only using the outer tent itself and having the flexibility of what this door provides in more airflow. And it's also protected. Like, rain's gonna come off of this. It's got a big space here so you don't have rain getting to the inner tent of the tent. Now, as I mentioned before, this tent is a bit modular in the sense that you have inner tent options as well as outer fly fabric options. And because of that, the weight of the tent is going to change depending on what those options are you choose. So I'm going to drop those on the screen here so you can see what the various options look like in the total weight. Now, for the outer fly fabric, what you have the option for is a 7 denier nylon or a 10 denier polyester. That way you can choose whichever fabric you specifically prefer for your needs. We know the benefits of polyester versus nylon and nylon versus polyester. What you have also is a coated on both sides fabric. You can see here on my tent, I took it down to the desert and it got covered in sand. And because it has that sill like coating on both sides, the sand just kind of sticks to it. So that is what it is, but it has a 2000 millimeter hydrostatic head for both fabric options. But then also, because this is a 2-person tent, you do have 2 doors and 2 vestibules. And what's cool is the doors do open on the same side. So you're not one door over here and one door over here. They open on the same side, which makes getting in and out of the tent really easy. And I like on certain occasions for that to be the case. Now, something that is awkward about this tent, and I know that other people who have talked about this and shared it in videos has shared this as a con. And what that is the fact that the way that the door fly goes to attach or roll up is not on the outside of the tent, but on the inside of the tent. And it's a little awkward, to be honest. There is enough space in the toggle on the inside for you to do both doors. But let's get a little bit closer and show why it might be an issue. So because of the way the door is designed to attach and pull back to the inside of the tent and not have a toggle on the outside or something attached right here for you to roll it up, when you have rain coming down and the door is open and toggled in like that, then rain's just gonna come off of the edge of the tent here and it could just drop into the inside of the tent. Now, there are a couple of things that have been done to modify that or make some adjustments, and I'll show you that with the inner tent here, because you'll be able to push this back a little bit if you are using this as a 1-person tent especially. But I don't think it's the end of the world. If a little bit of water gets into my tent, I'm not looking at that as like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die, this is the worst thing ever. But it is something to make note of. If you are in a really rainy area, you spend a lot of time in the rain, then making a modification may be necessary. And there is a channel, Fellman Dave, that has shown a few different little modifications that you could do with this tent specifically for you to adjust that. So that's pretty cool. I would encourage you to go watch that if you are really concerned about that aspect for this. But otherwise, like, I'm more in the realm of this is just a nice way to get the door out of the way, and it is very secure this way as well. This allows for you to roll or tie those back and toggle them back and then have really good ventilation through the 2 doors side to side, and then at the ends to make it a bit more enjoyable on those hot stuffy nights where you want that ventilation but it's not going to be raining, because when it is raining you're gonna roll the door down anyway. So to me, it's not a huge problem, but it is something that people are concerned about, and so it's important to note. Now, removing or adding the inner back into the tent is not super difficult. It's something that goes pretty quickly. So we're gonna get this solid inner attached to the inside, and I'm gonna show you some of the little adjustments that have been made to it. Now, while this tent has an amazing amount of living space on the inside of the tent, something that it does lack is a lot of vestibule space. And part of that, I feel like, is to reduce the overall footprint of the tent, because if you're gonna increase the vestibule space, you've got to make it taller. That makes it higher profile. There's pros and cons to all of it, but you can see here, there's not a lot of vestibule space. Now, the solid inner was sent to me with a modification that's been made after some feedback that TFS got about the vestibule space. Now, I'm not somebody that spends time cooking in the vestibule in my tent. I'm not in an area that is the norm for me to do that, but I do know that people who have got the tent were concerned about, man, there's just not enough space here in the vestibule. So what was done is here on the inner tent, a little hook was added so that you can attach it. It's awkward from sitting in that angle, but so that you can attach it to this loop on this piece of cord that goes from end to end on the center of the tent. And what that does is it just reduces the inner space by a touch, and it increases the vestibule space here so that I can lay down or be sitting up and be cooking and doing my boiling water and everything and not have to worry so much about that space. But I can do that on both sides of the inner, which is cool. And it does increase the overall vestibule space here, so I can put things here that I don't want inside of the tent. And then when you don't want to have that, I can just unclip that, and then it's back to that full width of your sleeping area. So now here inside the solid inner, I'm intentionally not sitting in the center of the tent. I'm on my pad off to the side. And yes, I am absolutely rubbing my head to the ceiling. My arms and my shoulders are against the wall. And it's just the nature of what the shape of this tent does. It's not going to be the same amount of space that you would find from like a fully freestanding tent. But I do have two 25-inch wide pads in here, and because it's over 90 inches long, there is so much space. So if I want to come all the way to the end of the floor here, I've got enough space for a bunch of gear items, for my backpack, for anything that I would need. So if I show you here on this side, maybe that does it a little bit better. That is a huge amount of space. That is so, so cool for a tent that is also quite lightweight. And you've got two pockets in here. The monolite mesh here on the top is going to add some breathability to it, as well as the monolite that's here at the end. Plus the solid fabric has a little bit of breathability, but being a solid inner, it's meant to trap the heat a bit more. But I probably will find myself using the solid inner more than the mesh inner when I'm down in desert locations, and I know that it's not going to be too difficult to pitch, because this is going to handle keeping the dust out and the sand out of the tent a lot better. It's just a really cool space, you guys. I love the design of this tent. I love how much space there is in here. I love that it is a fully rectangular floor. I love that it's not a coffin. Like, it is sized to be a two-person tent, but for a one-person tent, it's very backpackable, very lightweight, and it's super cool. So let's get out and finish my thoughts on the Enran 2. So I've had the Enran 2 for a few months now and had it out on a few trips, and my experience with it so far has been really positive. I genuinely love this tent. It is a great design. It is also really impressive in the wind. One of the trips that I had it out on, there were some gnarly gusty winds that came through, some rain was falling, and this thing took it like a champ. I got everything out the way that it was supposed to, and being in really sandy conditions, I was concerned that stakes were going to pull and everything, and that the side panels of the tent were just going to collapse and be a huge problem. But it was awesome. Now, it's not going to be like steel. It's a very lightweight 7 denier nylon fabric on this tent, and so yeah, when you get some pressure on it, it is going to flex and have some stretch to it, but man, it just holds its shape, and it is really, really impressive. I've got also the one-person version of this tent, which is very similar in design. It has one less door, but I am considering taking that one-person tent on my through hike of the Uinta Highline Trail later this summer. And that would give me another like 6 nights of time in the Alpine with this style of tent, which is really enticing for me. I'm excited to potentially give that a shot. I've got a few options that I'm choosing from. But this is the Enran 2 from TFS Tents. Really, really cool. I am just excited about something that is not what you see every day out there on the tent market. So, links down in the description for you to check it out. I want to thank TFS for giving me the opportunity to share this with you guys, to test it and review. And so with that, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.